Okay, so I'm gonna talk about all the trees now because I feel like this is better. I'd rather just do like a one-to-one. My opinions on the tree, what I think they need to change, what I think they need to improve. I'm gonna organize this into the things that are clear cut and things that need a little bit more explanation. So I'm gonna start with probably some of the these ones are really straightforward and things I think they need to improve on and things that I think they deliver on and things I think they don't deliver on. And we'll kind of go through that in like order. So if you're ready to hear opinionated nerd talk about video games, get ready. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is Divine Crusader. So getting a chance to test out and play around with Divine Crusader, I think that it largely fulfills on the experience of playing a holy and divine warrior. There's a couple things I really like and a couple things I think could be improved or made better. So to get started, this Crusading Strike, I think the Crusading Strike is interesting. The main issue I have with Crusading Strike is that because it is a cleave attack, it has a really long animation. So if you want to try to build divine charges with this character, you have to do this really goofy cleave attack all the time on a single target, which is a super feels bad moment. So I don't know if I think that keeping a cleave somewhere in the tree is interesting, but having it be as your builder means that you're just kind of limited if you want to get divine charges, especially considering Smite the Wicked, the spender, is not a cleave attack. And so you run into the problem of you build up this big ability by cleaving, and then you can't even like use that big ability as a cleave. So that I personally don't love. I think that is like a major issue there. I think the most part, the tier 1s seem pretty straightforward. Sunder DCs are important to the tree. All the stuff feels pretty dang good. Additionally, the cores also feel good. I don't think there's anything wrong with these cores. Healing Ape is great. The immune durability damage is great. Changing your weapons to light. Again, the cores really nail it in terms of design and making the character feel good. However, when we get up to the tier 2s, again, we have some really good stuff. Consecrate, I love that Consecrate is more of a healing themed effect. It's also lower in the tree. It means if you're playing as like a tank, maybe you're playing as a healer, you can easily get this as like a low tier twist of sorts. You can like spend only a few points and still get access to this. I think it's a really good choice. I love the where Consecrate is positioned and its new point as being a healing effect primarily. Additionally, the mantle is really, really strong, and I think people might even consider using the mantle, so I really like this one. Shield of Faith, I find is kind of weird. I found that the divine charges were really inconsistent. Playing a character trying to get divine charges, the 10% chance on critical strike with a scimitar character, I found almost never procced. So I don't know if this is bugged or if it needs to be higher than 10%, but I could never sustain any more than one divine charge dual wielding scimitar Tempest. It's just one of the fastest attacking characters in the game. So I think that it needs to be like 10% per hit, or if it's like 25% of the time on critical hits, there's something wrong with this one. Extra smites is fine. Again, this and then the Smite the Wicked. Smite the Wicked really delivers in terms of like a big hit. The main issue I think I have with Smite the Wicked is that it has that problematic attack like visual that used to be on what was that? What was that? The old Divine Crusader one, the one that hit 3 times. Anyway, that did all the light damage. Yeah, it has that same animation that was like pretty much purged from the game. So I think that it's not necessarily bad, but I wouldn't want to have a situation where this ability comes out good and is very strong, because this is a very, very strong attack, and arguably one of the strongest attacks you can get as a spender. And it's got a big payoff for having all of the extra points. Confront any foe, that's the one. It has a big payoff for actually having the ranks in it, but I feel like it's not going to land the way you want it to. And that's the disappointing thing, is that like if they do end up changing this ability and making it, you know, reverting the visual, this one's not going to be nearly as exciting. Also, Zedalock, welcome to the stream team. Appreciate the support. It's been a fantastic day. But you know, Strike of the Poise is just good. Axiom of Faith is a great idea. Shield of Light, great idea. And even Gaze of the Divine is still good. True Seeing is something that you can't always fit into a build. So I think the Divine Crusader is really killing it up to tier 3. When you move up to tier 4, you get some straight up damage. You get this Crusade effect, which now grants you additional damage, as well as the Crusade when people stand in your circle, which is fantastic. The Heavenly Presence is good. The Blessed Strikes is just extremely powerful. And then Purge the Wicked's not that great. I think that, you know, this could definitely be better. I don't like the idea of, you know, tacking this onto the power critical feat, considering in the past this would have just been 2-4-6. Because it's an Epic Destiny, so I'm not as big lover of that. I'd rather see like 2-4-6, and then it becomes like, you know, 3-6-9 if you have power critical. I think that would be better in terms of that. But that being said, the tier 5s is really where we kind of hit it and miss it. I think Celestial Champion is a really cool idea. But I feel like having both Celestial Champion and Blessed Strike so close together feels kind of weird. Blessed Blades just fits in. It's the multiplier. I think that's a good ability. Law of the Divine is really interesting. And you're supposed to, when you hit monsters, it does extra law damage per character level when you critically hit with an attack. I couldn't get this to proc, so I can't tell you if this is too strong or not. I think it's probably good. Like, the damage seems good, so we'd actually have to test it. I don't think it would even be overpowered the way it is currently written in terms of on every critical strike, but on every hit, probably. I think if you wanted to make this a little bit more balanced, I would say, like, a serious cut down here. Make it, like, 15 d6s as opposed to 30, or like, so 1d6 per character level. It would be 1d6 per 2 character levels to get a total of 15. I think that'll be much more balanced since it does scale off of melee and ranged power. And it still hits, if you have the embodiment of law, it's landing on every hit. I think that'll be fine. Bring Down Wrath is nice, and I like Bring Down Wrath. The main issue I see with this one is that since it only affects shields, I feel as though in a tier 5, this is something that if you're playing as a full Divine Crusader, you probably won't use. And then Mighty Crusade is very powerful if you have Smite Evils, but you might not. It's important to note that this tree doesn't really give you Smite Evil. I don't know if taking Endless Smiting gives you Smite Evil. That's not really clear. But if you don't have that, you also can't use Mighty Crusade. So I feel like somewhere up here, there needs to be a big payoff. I would love to see a big payoff. And then I would also like to see, as I said, I think that Crusading Strike should be made not a cleave. And if possible, if there is a cleave that wants to be added here, I think that you could easily condense Endless Smiting with Divine Smite, put those two together. Oh yeah, this is how you gain Smite Evil, yeah. But either way, just combine these two abilities together and throw in a separate cleave or something like that. I think that would be a great way to improve this tree. But so far, I think Divine Crusader is the most holistic, the most solid one. Maybe making something so Bring Down Wrath affects something that isn't for shields. Like if you are not wearing a shield, then X. Something like that. I'm not so sure, but yeah. It just feels weird to have this up here when, it's something you're not going to take on this tree. Moving on to Grandmaster of Flowers. Oh man, there's a lot to talk about in Grandmaster of Flowers. So I really like the general concept. I like the hand wrap proficiency. I like that the mantle gives you the unarmed fighting style. I think that's really good. This one's pretty great. But as we move on, no, there's nothing for turns in there. I think turns are going to be an Unyielding Sentinel and or the other one. You're subscribed, you don't remember? Well, you will. So you get the extra material types, which is kind of neat. I think that bypassing material types is great, and the alignment types, I think it's a good choice. This makes Grandmaster Flowers a nice secondary tree for anybody who's playing any type of physical damage class, if you want to fit that in there. And they also get a lot of good abilities. For example, the different builders, you get the Lily Petal here, or you have the Bring into Focus. I think the main issue with both of these builders is that Lily Petal is kind of like a range attack that's not too bad, but it scales with 4 spell power. I think that this should probably scale with some type of melee power, or have a separate ability here that is going to be, a third attack that scales with melee, or like as an actual physical attack. I think it's kind of important. As far as the rest of the tier 1s go, I think they're mostly fine stunning DCs. They kind of line up with a lot of the other things, being like the introduction to like a tree. So I think that's, for the most part, pretty strong. However, as we move up here, that's when things get a little bit screwy. Halo Blows is a great ability. Wholeness of Spirit is something that is kind of weird in that it doesn't tell you how it scales. It just says you benefit from the healing spell. This ability should tell you how it scales, and maybe even be a multi-selector with a melee power scaling and a spell power scaling, depending on which one you want. I don't think this is a bad ability by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that it could be more clear. As far as the Meditate ability, I think this should be gone. Meditation is totally useless. It has never been useful in the game. So this should be gone. Either Meditate is getting a whole rework for this to be here, or this should be gone and replaced with something else. Meditation literally does not work in DDO. There's no time where you want to meditate. There's no, you just don't press that button. You just, literally just don't press that button. So I would never, this should be gone and replaced with something else. As far as the actual spenders go, I think they're pretty good. The Drifting Lotus is a reasonably strong melee attack, and it does have the satisfying feeling of having a stun if you have extra charges. I think it's good. So Drifting Lotus is like a big +1 for me. And then Orchid Blossom, again, actually kind of lines up. I think that it's pretty cool. Having an area of effect, like ranged attack, I think is also very cool, and it fits in the theme of Key Caster. So I really like that. As far as key projection goes, I think the key projection is actually not that bad. It just needs its damage to be rescaled. If you can rescale the damage and also clean up some of its visual movement effects, I actually don't think this one is strictly that bad. How you scale it, though, is tough, because right now it is okay. It's like reasonable damage if you're actually scaling it with force spell power, but if you don't scale with force spell power and you scale with melee power, it might not scale quite the same, since a lot of melee power is coming out of the system. So this might need to be re-examined in the future as far as like the key stuff goes. Overall, I think that the tier 2 does pretty much deliver, but again, clarity of what Wholeness of Spirit actually does and how it scales is important, because it's an epic ability. You don't want mysteries about that, and Meditate is bad. Moving up to the tier 3, you can see this line is all passive, and the passives are all right for the most part. So Dance of Flowers, giving you +1 W, is very clear and good. Lotus Blades, which gives you other weapons as key weapons, which I think is an interesting concept in the similar way that Divine Crusader gives you access to divine weapons. I think that stuff is fine for the most part as a favorite weapon. I think this is fine to have this here. It allows you to do that. I think this should probably be expanded to allow more weapon types in, possibly, things that might fit in more with Monk. Picking some more exotic weapon styles would be kind of interesting. So I think that having that in there would be nice. Balance in all things is not bad. It just gives you immunity to slippery surfaces. Although I feel like since this point is 1, Gaze the Divine, this could also stand to be a 1-pointer. As far as these two go, the Flickering Flame and the Strength of Stone, Flickering Flame is where you get your alternate martial token generator. But it says, on hit and upon being missed, you have a 10% chance to get a martial token, and they're independently tracked. I think this is a good way to generate martial tokens. It's basically when you hit monsters, you get martial tokens. No real complaint about this one. That one's pretty good. And then Strength of Stone, it's just a passive. I feel like because it's higher up, this should be a little bit stronger. Just because this is higher up into the tree, it should maybe be 10, 20, 30 health, as well as the physical resistance rating. Just because I don't think this would be too strong. A lot of people playing in Grandmaster of Flowers probably won't have that many defensive stats in the first place, and it's a tier 3 compared to like a Legendary Dreadnaught, which gives 30 health in a tier 1. I feel like this could be made more powerful. Now, as we move up, you're going to notice another issue is, again, it's another row of passives. And I think that one of the issues with some of these rows of passives specifically is that we haven't had anything that affects the Destiny Mantle. So right now, the Destiny Mantle only gives you the Monk attack style, which doesn't really make you want to use the Mantle. Instead, now you can pick Serene Mercy and get 15% bonus damage to the Helpless. But if I'm playing as a Grandmaster of Flowers, I'm more than likely trying to pick up a different Destiny Mantle somewhere around here. One of these other Destiny Mantles is probably better. So I think either it's possible to replace some things, or replace Meditate with something that interacts with your Destiny Mantle, or maybe make something else somewhere else in the tree that adds a little bit more to the Destiny Mantle, because as of right now, it's the saddest mantle of all of the Destiny Mantles. Catch the Wind gives max dex bonus with all armor, and this tree can be sort of used. You can use all the abilities in here while uncentered and generate enough ki to be able to use them, but this just makes no sense. I really don't like this. I don't even know if we need to have this based off of the stances, and I think it's okay not to have all the stances be represented in Grandmaster of Flowers, because it feels like it takes up a lot of the design space. Chase Perfection is still a really good enhancement. I think that no longer saving on a 1 is fine, although I would like to see them also grant like +2 to each of the saves, just as a balance point. Granting a little bit more saves would be just nice here. You don't have to change the cost, just that. Piercing Clarity is the same ability that it was before, and I think that it's a good power. And then the Flow of Water is helplessness damage reduction. This is generally not a very useful ability, and again, with all these passives taking up the space, you have to ask yourself, which ones do you really want? Like, no matter what character I'm playing when I get up to here, what do I want to take? Well, I'm taking the helplessness damage, because it affects the mantle. But imagine for a moment you don't take the mantle, because you're taking another mantle, because like you can get the Dreadnaught mantle, which is just straight up strictly better. So if I don't even take this mantle, do I want the max dex bonus? Maybe. Change Perfection, that's pretty good. Piercing Clarity, you might not actually need this if you already have all these stats from your weapons and items. And Flow of Water, yeah, +1 all saving throws is good, but again, it's just like, it's unsatisfying passives where you just don't feel that oomph, that like, I'm playing a Grandmaster of Flowers. So I think that's another kind of issue. So I would like to see maybe some of these things combined. So as an example, I would love to see Flickering Flame and Strength of Stone. Actually, even better, what I would like to see is Flow of Water come down here and go with Flickering Flame, and you can choose between the two. So you either are water or fire, and you can choose between the two, and then Strength of Stone and Catch the Wind be combined together, so you can have those two be entirely separate, and then that way you would see you know, you could have those two options, because this is basically, do you want hit points or do you want max dex bonus and dodge, or do you want these saving throws and less damage taken or more damage taken? And you could even split it up so the martial token about being hit or missed goes into flow of water, and then move the on hit stuff into flickering flame. And then it gives you 2 more spots to either add in, again, something for the Destiny Mantle to make it a little bit more enticing, and also something to follow it with Keycaster. So this is where we're going to hit the tier 5, and this is where Keycaster is going to come into play here. There's really no benefit to playing Keycaster in this tree. The main reason is because you get this one builder, which has a 6-second cooldown, and then you have this other attack that has a 25-second cooldown. So because your cooldowns are so high, you're standing around almost all the time unless you're straight up meleeing people. And if you're meleeing people, you are incentivized to maximize your melee damage. And if you want to maximize your melee damage, you don't maximize the Keycaster stuff. So there needs to be more stuff in here to support that, or the abilities in Monk need to be reworked. Maybe those can go in tandem, but at the very least, this should be supported with some more abilities. I would appreciate an extra ability somewhere in here that could use your key. That would be nice. Maybe on the tier 4 is another different attack style. Having more attacks in a very monk tree feels appropriate. And now as we move up to the tier 5, Beyond the Center is a really good tier 5 for Grandmaster of Flowers. Imposing Force is a great ability. The problem with this is it says while centered. There are reasons why you wouldn't want to be centered to be in this tree, so I don't love the way that this is restricted. The Elude the Veil is very good, and I think this is something you'd want to keep here. And then balanced attacks. Moving balanced attacks in the tier 5 of Grandmaster of Flowers actually doesn't feel too bad. And so I think that this is a great place to put it. And then Scattering of Petals. Again, I actually think Scattering Petals is very good. So overall, there's not a lot of changes other than that I would make. Condense a couple abilities, get rid of Meditate, make something a little bit more exciting on the Destiny Mantle, add in an extra attack, either for both, not maybe as a spender or not a spender, for Keycaster and other stuff. I would also say probably drop the cooldown of the spenders. I think the main issue I have with the cooldown being so high on these spenders is that you can't use them very often. You will easily always have, like, there's 0 times where you won't have the martial charges. You'll always have your martial charges because this is on a 6-second cooldown. Follow the routine of the other spenders and make it so that they're 12 seconds or even lower. I know that some trees have spenders that are basically 0. I think the Primal Avatar spenders are, 5-second cooldown. I think that spenders should have a really, really short cooldown to incentivize you to make decisions as to when you want to use the abilities, and not for the game to say, oh, well, you'll always have your charges by the time your cooldowns come up. So these should have 5-second cooldown to really incentivize the whole key aspect of it. I think that would be very cool. Yeah, that's what I'd like to see. If possible, I would actually maybe even say, if you wanted, keep the Orchid Blossom here, and then move the key casting out here. So you could take Orchid Blossom and Key Projection. You won't take Key Projection on a melee. You would only take that on a Key Caster type character. And same with Orchid Blossom. You don't take this on a melee. You only take this on the Key Caster. So why can't I take both of these on a Key Caster? There's no reason not to. Separate those out. Let me take both of them. And dump the cooldown, like I said, of both of these to 5 seconds. So if I want to, I can always use the Key Projection. If I want to, I can always use the Orchid Blossom, and you can kind of convert your character that way. Make it all scale off of melee power, and I think we're in the clear. Overall, I think Grandmaster of Flowers is a really, really solid direction. And in terms of Epic Destinies, I think that these two are probably the most complete and things I want to see going forward. Like I said, both really solid, Divine Crusader and Grandmaster of Flowers. Okay, so now let's take a look at Legendary Dreadnaught, which... What the crap? Oh, this menu is buggy. So let's take a look at Legendary Dreadnaught, which is something that a lot of people have some spicy opinions about. And I personally think that Legendary Dreadnaught does a good job of realizing what it feels like to be a Dreadnaught, and like the terror and the fear and like being an imposing force in the battlefield. But it doesn't do enough to be a strong Destiny, and I'll explain to you why. So... you know what the cloak looks like? Yeah, the cloak is going to be the Destiny map. So all the stars, the constellations, that's what the cloak is going to be. Let's take a look at Legendary Dreadnaught. So what does it do for you? Number 1, you get like your melee stats for each core. Then you get attack and damage with weapons and PRR. All this stuff sounds good, and I like this. So this is perfectly fine. I have no issues with this whatsoever. As we move into the actual tree, though, the tier 1's pretty straightforward. Plus read all tactics DCs is just good. Seems right. Hit points, extra bonuses during action boost, all your ability scores, and then the mantle. So the Destiny Mantle, every 3 seconds while this is active, nearby enemies gain a stack of terror. It's not explained in here what terror is, but terror is the old purification bonus. So when a monster has terror, it causes them to, and it should be explained here when it comes in, the terror is minus to their hit chance, their spell power, and other stuff. It's just a debuff on enemies that makes them weaker. So it doesn't increase your damage you deal, it makes enemies nearby you weaker. And you can apply terror in multiple different ways. To get started, you have Momentum Swing. Momentum Swing is an ability here that if I put a point into, it has +1 threat range and multiplier on its attack, and it gains terror stacks on monsters, making them weaker when you hit them. This is a really valuable ability as it just is a good attack. It's just straight up a good attack. You're going to want to use this all the time, and it gives you martial charges for easy martial charges. There's also Momentum Shot, which is exactly the same thing. Overall, Tier 1 I think is very good, and it lines up with the rest of the Tier 1s we've talked about, such as the Divine Crusader and the Grandmaster of Flowers. But, moving up, this is where things start to get a little less good. For starters, extra action boost is powerful, and I like to see that. But now we have Lay Waste. Now, Lay Waste previously was an ability that caused a AoE knockdown. It was a good defensive tool used for many people. Now Lay Waste is similar in that it applies a... I actually have to put points in this tree, don't I? Now Lay Waste is similar in that it is still an attack that does some damage, but it's no longer an area of effect attack, it's a single target. And it also has a trip and a sunder effect. The problem is it requires both your trip and your sunder DCs. Now, one of the main issues with this attack is that getting actual trip and sunder bonuses is quite difficult, as those items don't always appear commonly on different item things. So, for example, if you actually look for Vertigo items, you're going to be very disappointed at the quantity of them in epics. There's 2. And that's a bit of a problem. Trip has not really been prioritized. Same with Sundering, Shatter. There's like a zillion stunning items because it's been important to print stunning items for Dire Charge, Monk abilities, and everything else. Those 2 abilities don't really have as much representation. So I would love to see a different ability to kind of go inside with this. I think this attack is very good, but I think that this is a bit of a problem here in terms of some of its abilities. What I would like to see is somewhere here in Legendary Dreadnaught, I don't know where, an ability that allows one of your abilities to scale off of, or one of your tactics to scale off of your other tactics. So for example, allowing your trip to scale off of your stunning, or your shatter to scale off of your stunning. So that way, gearing this isn't as much of a nightmare because of the lack of availability of certain items and effects. I think that would be a good way to solve a lot of the problems with Lay Waste not really working. As well, I think Lay Waste should be an area of effect attack. Building up with a Momentum Swing into an area of effect that has a trip and a sunder, I think that's really cool. Trip also isn't the best thing in the world, so there are a lot of monsters that are going to be immune to it, so having this at least be area of effect would make it a lot more satisfying. So bring Lay Waste back to an area of effect attack, and allow, like I said, somewhere in the tree to either convert those bonuses over, so I can, let's say I build all tripping items, which is literally I just get the only item, the Dustbone Ring, I put that one on, and then I can say, okay, convert my Shatter, which is your Sunder bonuses, make those scale off of Trip, and then this ability can actually work for the character that you're trying to use. Additionally, it keeps highest ability score. I think it's actually important for this tree, and I would like Legendary Dreadnaught to keep that. So this ability, keeping its highest ability score, I think is great. Life and Death is okay. I think this is not that great, and I would like to see this changed into something more exciting for Dreadnaught. Similarly, Epic Power Attack. I don't like Epic Power Attack. I think Epic Power Attack is bad because it's just boring. It's just +3 damage while Power Attack is active, and this is really boring for an Epic Destiny. Again, I would like to see this replaced by something or anything else. Tactic specialization. So, you know how there's the plus to Sunder here and there's plus to Trip in the other Destiny? If this was just a 3 and it was a multi-selector, you could use Trip, Sunder, or Shatter. Trip, Sunder, or Stunning. I think that would be great to put here instead of Epic Power Attack. I think Epic Power Attack is boring. Some people might latch on to Epic Power Attack, but I don't think so. Strike Twice is fine. This is just really strong, so I have no real complaints about this. So overall, there's a lot of work that could be done. Again, Life and Death could be completely replaced. I think that this, again, could be completely replaced. And a conversion ability might be nice. Next, we go up to the tier 3, and we get critical damage. This is very, very nice to have. It's extra damage. The problem is it doesn't apply to your hit. This should have some quantity of hit involved. Critical confirmation, because that's essential for current endgame DDO. So let's add critical confirmation in there as well, please. Revel in Fear gives you extra tactical DCs for each martial charge you have. I actually like this, and I think this should apply to Lay Waste, so this one's really great. Sow Discord, which adds to your Destiny Mantle, activating an action boost, adds a stack of terror and a shaken effect to all enemies in range of your mantle, which is kind of cool. The problem I have with this is it's also the martial charge cap. Those things should not be connected. The martial charge cap should not be something as part of the mantle. The reason why I say this is no other Destiny does this. Martial charge cap in Shadowdancer is part of this crippling strike thing, so you get the martial charge cap. In Divine Crusader, the divine charge cap is part of this true seeing. So having it be part of the Destiny mantle is kind of weird. That should be separated out. If you wanted to make it so that Discord, or like just put it here, so each martial charge grants you +1 tactical DCs and +1 charge cap, I think that'd be a much better solution. Discord is perfectly fine. I think it's a good ability. Armor of Dusk, amazing ability. Really, really, I love the way this is. The fact that it's like a trade. It's really fun. I love it. And then we have Wrath. Activating a tactical feat has a chance to get you martial charge. I actually don't have a problem with this. I think it's perfectly fine. I think the main issue is that activating tactical feats in DDO 2021 is bad. They have slow animations, and the DCs are almost always lower because they don't scale properly. Like, Lay Waste scales with highest ability score plus Sundering bonus and other stuff. Oh, it doesn't even take into account level. Oh, this one's bad too. But like, imagine you want to use a tactical DC, but you're playing a character that is, for any reason, not strength-based. You can't use Dexterity, Con, Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma with tactical feats. They don't work with Stunning Blow, they don't work with Sunder, and they don't work Trip. So I think that Wrath is a really neat idea, but those abilities need to be adjusted to make Wrath valuable. So I think that if tactical feat also includes things like Lay Waste, then it's fine, but you don't see anyone using Trip, and you might see some strength-based characters using Stunning Blow, but that's the absolute top end of people using tactical feats. So this ability either needs a rewrite, or it needs to encompass a lot of different abilities, which is kind of a big deal there. Moving up to the tier 4, we have while energy action boost is active, you gain +1 W. I think that's perfectly fine. Combat Brute is a good effect and ability. Kick while they're down, which is helpless damage. Perfect. Dread. While in Dreadnaught Mantle, you gain physical resistance rating, and your mantle does the Divine Crusader effect. Again, I think it's perfectly fine. It's an addition to the mantle. It's good. It's consistent. It feels powerful. I like it. Strike with Fear. Your weapon against creatures that are afraid, shaken, or 5 stacks of terror, add 1 stack of vulnerability. Again, just a really good effect. Really solid effect here. One thing I would like to see is a Supreme Trip, Sunder, and Stunning Blow effect. So what I would like to see is I would like you to say, take this ability, strike twice, put this one up here, because it's really strong, and it'll make you have to think, do I want Combat Brute? Do I want Kick while they're down? Do I want strike twice? It makes you have to think about which abilities you value the most. And instead, down here, let's make an attack a multi-selector. It's not improved Trip, it's not improved Sunder, and it's not improved Stunning Blow. It's Superior Trip, Superior Sunder, Superior Stunning Blow, and it is a Sunder that is like 10 plus character level, or like whatever the new scaling is. So yeah, this should be 20. So I don't know why this isn't 20. This should automatically be 20 and not 10. But 20 plus highest of ability scores plus Sundering for the Sunder, the Trip, and the Stunning Blow. This means that anybody can use Legendary Dreadnaught to pick up a bit of tactical DCs, which is nice for every character class to have this now. And it would work with this Wrath. You always want to use actual tactical DCs. And if you happen to have both, you can just say like, oh, this shares the cooldown with improved Trip or whatever it is. So you don't have people like constantly tripping things. That's what I would like to see. I would like to see kind of a universal thing. It doesn't mean that stunning is always going to be the best option as well, depending on gearing. Of course, stunning is the most available form of gear right now, but maybe that will change. So I would love to see something like that. And as we move up to the tier 5, Legendary Tactics, which is if you have Tactician, you gain 5 physical resistance rating and 5 magical resistance rating. This should be 10. I would never take Tactician for 5 PRR and MRR. Make that 10, please. Thank you. Terror, which is an auto crit. No real problem here. I would like it if Terror did something based on how many, like if you had 3 or more charges, Terror did something. I think that would be cool. There is another attack that I'm going to reference here. I know this is Primal Avatar. No, not Primal Avatar. Where's Fury? Fury of the Wild. So you have the Great Leveler, which scales its range based on how many primal charges you have. I think that since this class is all about generating martial charges, it would make sense that Terror, the attack, has something that scales with how many martial charges you have, which says if you have 3 or more martial charges, it does something, but it doesn't consume them. I think that would be cool for Terror, and I would like to see that in Terror. Dusk Surge. Hitting enemies has a chance to give you action boosts. Genius. Beautiful. Insanely powerful. Extremely good. Dire Charge. Delightful. Beautiful. I actually am okay with keeping this Strength, Dex, Con, and bonus to stun attacks under the singular impression that you can pick up something else in this tree like as I said before, the superior trip, stunning blow, and whatever. I don't really have an issue with dire charge being limited to strength, dex, and con classes. I think that's perfectly okay. Having a really big crowd control effect land on this, I think that's good. I don't have an issue with this. But I do think that there should be more payoff. As I said, something here in Terror. And then also Overpower. I think that Overpower is kind of disappointing because it's slashing, piercing, and bludgeoning weapons. I assume that this will also work on ranged attacks, but I'm not sure based on DDO's coding. But if this hits range, I think it's also fine. I think that would be a good way to balance out Legendary Dreadnought. Make it a little bit stronger, a little bit more durable, give you a bit of focus on tactical DCs. It makes the low tier splashes nice because let's just say you're playing as a Shadowdancer who gets no inherent crowd control, or a Divine Crusader who gets no inherent crowd control. You could go into Legendary Dreadnought and say you're playing as a charisma-based Paladin in Divine Crusader. You could then go into here and pick up your Supreme Trip and be able to trip things and get all those extra DCs and kind of be a little bit more flexible. So I think that would be a good idea, and I'd like to see something like that done with Legendary Dreadnought. Again, I have no issues with Dire Charge being up here. Dire Charge has been in the game for quite a long time, and it's been an insanely powerful ability that has pretty much carried all sorts of melee players. I think that there is a bit of a discussion as to whether, some people say that, oh, well, this entire archetype is dead. You're going to kill an archetype by making it more restrictive and by putting it in a specific area. I think that the answer is it's just going to change. You can play melee without Dire Charge. There are lots of people that do it, either people that haven't unlocked it yet, or if you're, like me and you play hardcore all the time, sometimes in hardcore you just don't level up the epic destinies you need to take all these abilities. So you kind of have to make different types of decisions, or you make even more defensive decisions. So Dire Charge is not the be-all, end-all of all endgame things, and it also isn't disappearing. It will still be in the game, and now it fits thematically into a very tactics DC area. Although I would like to see Dire Charge, again, if possible, since it is called Dire Charge, and you also have Terror, maybe if either one or both of these attacks had something that scaled with your martial charges, I think that would be quite interesting with Legendary Dreadnought. So that's personally how I feel about Legendary Dreadnought and what I would like to see change. And yeah, and a reminder, all of the things that I'm talking about here, all the changes I would like to see, I will be posting on the forums, so that will be, very easily verifiable and findable if you want to see these things in the future, and also, yeah, that sort of thing. But that's what I would do to Legendary Dreadnought. I don't know if you guys think anything about that, if you're like, have any dissenting opinions. As I said, I think that overall, it really hits the head on a lot of cool abilities, but I think that it does not measure up to the raw strength of Divine Crusader. Divine Crusader is better than Legendary Dreadnought, and Legendary Dreadnought doesn't have that cool, like why am I pressing Lay Waste if I can't even get trip or sundering effects? So like, I would love to see some adjustment like that, somewhere in there. Cool. So now, what are the next 3 epic destinies I want to look at? So next is, yeah, Fury is good. Primal Avatar is a good look next. And then the last 2 I'm going to save for last, which are the 2 that I think that need the most work and could be majorly improved each one. I'm just going to take a sec and grab some more water. As I said, overall, I think that a lot of the epic destinies are like really good. So like, please don't think for any second that I'm out here saying, like, throwing shade and being like the epic destinies suck and I think this all sucks. Not what I'm saying. I really like a lot of the general design of what's going on. I think that Dreadnought just needs to capitalize on the terror and maximizing your tactic usage. I think it's really cool, but right now it does not do that. Also, Epic Power Attack sucks. Get rid of this ability. And this one sucks. Get rid of this. If I want Healing Amp, I should go into a Divine Destiny, not a martial one. That doesn't make sense. Okay, Primal Avatar. Do any of the other Epic Destinies have options like Dire Charge? Not currently, but I also don't think that everything needs to have Dire Charge. I think it's okay that Dire Charge is unique in that it's a big AoE stun. Similarly, how the Great Leveler is similar to Dire Charge, but has a different amount of AoE, and is quite useful once you start using it. I don't think that everything needs to have a Dire Charge, but there should not be a point where, like, if DDO has a fundamental problem where the removal of Dire Charge means that most classes, specifically melee, don't have the ability to get access to crowd control, that's a problem. So that's what you need to fix. I don't think everyone needs to have Dire Charge. I don't even think everyone needs to have Dire Charge-like abilities. I think that there needs to be at least access to some crowd control. That's why I'm saying a multi-selector that is like a low tier multi-selector, like literally take strike twice, which is really strong. Put it up here, and then replace this spot, or even just in this spot alone. Multi-selector attack, superior trip, superior sunder, superior stunning blow, and it's 20 plus highest ability score plus trip or sunder or stunning, and it is a attack that allows you to crowd control something as a tactical ability that scales off whatever stat you want. So you can go into Dreadnaught to pick it up if you want. It works for everyone, right? I think that should be good. That's what I would like to see that as a low tier, like low twist. It means that as a Dreadnaught, you can really feel like the tactician, and I think that's something that Dreadnought never really capitalized on, was feeling like tactical god, where you're just like stun this guy, trip this guy, do this thing, which is what you wanted to feel like, but like it just never pans out. It just never pans out like that. So give me a new tactical in lay waste, make this AoE. Give me a new tactical here. Give me dire charge as a tactical, and maybe even make terror when you have stacks of martial whatever be tactical. In fact, screw that, whatever I just said. When monsters have X stacks of terror on them, terror strike should do something else, and dire charge should do something when you have 3 or more martial tokens. Give dire charge an extra damage shockwave when it has like martial tokens or something. Like, that's what needs to be in here. Yeah. Great Lever is going to be good for enough for us melee. LD is going to be the only option for melee. I don't think so. Okay, what was this said? Do you think that something like improved or superior stunning blow would be good? Removes the charge and uncapped AoE from dire charge, but lets you stun 2 to 3 monsters? Well, that's what I was saying, Coster. I was saying that what they should do is they should take strike twice here, shove this into tier 4, because it's a really low-hanging +6 double strike double shot, and I think it should be higher of investment. It also makes it so you actually have to choose between these abilities, because right now you just literally take all of this because it's all really good. So putting this up here, you have to go, oh god, do I want the vulnerability stacking, or do I have that on my weapon, or do I want the helpless damage, or do I want the double strike because I'm not doing boss damage, or do I want the combat brute? Like, you have to think about what you want, and I really like that as a decision. And they should just add superior stunning blow literally right here. Just literally right here. Like I'm saying, it should be superior sunder, superior stunning blow, superior trip, and it uses the new scalar of 20 plus highest ability score plus whatever the bonus is for it. Right there. I would like to see that. Never played a very high level, but if you're going to take a very powerful feat, as you said, put it in one tree. A lot of players will be forced to take it. That's fine though. I think that players feeling forced to take something that's like, you know, that's the growing pain of playing a video game that changes. Primal Avatars, the Fire Builder can get to work. Yeah, the Fire Builder needs to work. Thing that generate divine charges with the Bard song taking. No, it does not. I like to probably make Epic Destinies more interactive. Yeah, me too. I just want them to give me options for the UI so I can see it. Charges is a completely different way of playing. I'm curious how it will work. Yeah, like I said, I think that a lot of cases, general charges, I would like to see that. Yeah, exactly. So if you still are, let's say you're playing intelligence-based assassin rogue, and you have literally no crowd control, you could Dreadnaught tier 2 and pick up superior trip if tripping fits into your DCs a little bit more. Because remember, superior trip would last like 30 seconds versus stunning blow, which is only 6. Now, trip doesn't work on everything that stunning blow will work on, because stunning blow can stun more things than trip can, and also trip doesn't cause helplessness. But what if you're playing as an intelligence-based assassin rogue, you happen to have the Dustbone ring on, you have the trip, and you can't fit stunning into your build, you take the trip instead, and it scales off of your intelligence so you can still do your thing, versus the stunning blow. You know, I would love to see that as an option. The next one I want to tackle is Primal Avatar. Now, Primal Avatar is something that needs a lot more oomph and a lot more love, mostly bug fixes. Honestly, I think the Primal Avatar, with its bug fixes, would be fine, but we'll take a quick gander at this. For the most part, I think the Primal Avatar really nails it in terms of the feeling of giving you different abilities based on your season that you choose. Sort of. There definitely could stand to be things that give you a little bit more stats, depending on the type of season that you choose, and also, I kind of wish you had an extra spell-like ability or attack. You get 2 attacks in here, and I feel like that's not enough. And that's the thing that kind of messes me up a little bit. Primal Avatar, you've got the Builder Spring to Summer, you've got the Carrion Swarm, and you have the Stormcatcher Builder. All are good, and I think that the builders are good. But I would like to see a situation in which these builders actually, like, it's not just this. There's the builder, there's the spender, and then there should be like an extra attack here. I would love to see something that is kind of not really great, like, let's say Nature's Blessing, Flowers and Thorns, Improved Form. One of these things, replace it, and give me a spell-like ability. Give me a good spell-like ability. Lightning, give me a Chain Lightning spell-like ability. Acid, or whatever, give me a, I don't know, all the acid spells are bad. I can't think of a good acid spell in DDO, but give me a good acid spell-like ability. And then fire, give me a good fire spell-like ability. Even put a multi-selector and have access to like 6 spells in here. So there's 2 fire, how many elements are there? No, give me 9 spell-like abilities. Give me 1 multi-selector here, replace this with 1 multi-selector, and give me 9 spell-like abilities. Give me 1 spell-like, or 1 that are like 3 spell-like abilities, where you can either pick up a light spell, so maybe you get like, you know, Sunburst and a healing spell, so you get like Regenerate and another one. And then same with the what is this? The lightning one. Give me a cold spell-like ability, an electric, and a sonic. And then for this one, give me an acid, a force, and a poison. Give me 9 spell-like abilities. Throw them in here so I get an extra attack out of this tree. I think that, and don't make it a charge. Don't make it build charges or anything else like that. Just make it a spell-like ability. Have an extra attack in here. I think it'll go a long way to making Primal Avatar be good. I think that these spell-like abilities that you get here are fine, but you spend most of your time casting spells. And as an important note, spells don't scale well up to level 30 in current incarnation of DDO. You run out of mana. These are all problems. So I would like to see that kind of expanded upon and built up and created like, you know, a little bit stronger in terms of that. So yeah, so I would love to see something like that as a bit of a change. I think for the most part, the rest of the stuff is really good. I think that Shardstorm could use an increase in damage. And Thundersnow could use an increase in damage. I think that both of these things don't do enough damage. Actually, Reborn and Fire. Pretty much all the spell-like abilities. The builders are actually fine. I think that just the spenders need more damage on them. I don't know why the damage is so low on these. This is going to be split up, so don't worry about this. I actually think that Spirit Heart is good. And I'm going to tell you why. I think that this should be more healing amp. So it should be like 5, 10, 15. Or even, it should be like 10, 20, 30. Let's be real. It should be 10, 20, 30. Let's be real. It should be 10, 20, 30. But I think that generating divine charges is very, very cool. I have no issues with this. I think it's awesome. I think that the tier 4 up here is actually perfect. I would change nothing about the tier 4. And the tier 5, we've talked about this, and I'll talk about it in the big post. But basically, I think that the primal allies that you summon, their spells should have no saving throw, because you can't scale DCs to the monsters, so all their spells should have no saving throw. And they should probably scale off of your crit. If they can't scale off of crit, then they should 100% have no saving throw. Also, they should remove their default attack so they can't attack monsters, because that would be a big fix. I don't have any issues to really change about Mass Frog. I think Mass Frog is perfectly fine, and having this as a spell-like ability is good. So that's also fine. I don't think Mass Frog increases in cost. It doesn't, so that's fine. Primal Channel, as I said before, Thrive is a really neat idea to generate more Primal charges. The idea that I can see is picking up Gird Against Demons for an extra Primal charge and an extra Primal charge from Shiradi, and then all of a sudden you have 22% cost reduction on top of your other cost reduction. I think that's really, really neat, but it doesn't work. So fixing that, I think, would be good. I think the Primal Avatar is a really cohesive Destiny, but just get rid of Improved Form, replace this with a spell-like ability, and give you a multi-selector of 9, fix some of these abilities, up the damage on the spender, and then fix the ally, and I think you have a really good Destiny here on your hands. I really love a lot of this. So Primal Avatar is definitely one of my favorite Destinies so far, and to look at in terms of just like it feels fun to play, but waiting on cooldowns because of the builders not really like being the only things you can really use out of this tree is not as exciting as not doing that. Exactly, 100%. So now we're talking about Fury of the Wild, which is one of the best and worst Destinies in this whole bunch. So Fury of the Wild is really neat. I love the names of the cores here. Die Hard, Die Harder, and Die Harderist are perfect names, and I really hope they don't change it. It really fits in with the Barbarian theme. It feels good. They're probably going to change Die Harderist, but I really hope that they don't. Fury is quite fun. Oh, something I haven't mentioned before, but it should be quite obvious. All builders 6-second cooldown. There's no reason for them to have different cooldowns. If they share a cooldown, they should be the same cooldown. Builders should not be better than one or another. They should all share a cooldown. Okay, so this having 8 and this having 6 is dumb. Terror being 6 is good. This Primal Avatar thing, 6, 6, 6 is no. This one's 8. That's as dumb. So they should all be 8 or 6. Sorry. Moving beyond this. The main issue that plagues Fury of the Wild, okay, is the fact that Adrenaline is really good and Cutter is also good, but it's not adrenaline good, so you never take Cutter. And this is a bit of a problem. So, with this, we're going to take a quick look at some of these abilities here. To get started, the Tier 1 is reasonably strong. The Mantle of Fury is really nice. That it's got that healing thing built in, which is always fun. The trip DCs feel right. The acute senses feel good. The enduring feels good. There's no real change here I would make to the Tier 1. And I think building Fury, I think that this Adrenaline and this Cutter are very, very comparable abilities. I think that if you're out here in this tree and you're picking up Adrenaline and you get the 100% extra damage on your attack, and you want to compare that with Cutter, I think that those abilities actually stack up reasonably favorably, because the benefit of Quick Cutter is it gives you more of a defensive. It actually feels like you're making a decision. You're saying, I am going for the offense versus the defense. Now, some of you might say it's not really a decision because you always would want to take the higher damage option. But again, people play things at different like organizations, so or not the organization, but like different levels. And so I think that having that as an option is fine. Where it breaks down, though, is some of the upgrades, and we're going to talk about that here. But before we get to that, I think that right away, the two primal builders are exciting. And since this is a melee Destiny and not having support for anything else, I think that's actually pretty good. As far as we get to the higher tiers, Embrace Your Nature gives you a chance to get a primal charge in every attack. This is a great idea. It's very straightforward. You'll get primal charges whenever you need them passively, so as long as you're attacking, you can pretty consistently have this. Primal Scream is an ability that needs to increase in strength. Basically, its damage sucks. So the damage needs to increase by quite a bit to ever be valuable in terms of a damage ability. Right now, all I can see this being used for is the physical attribute, or the primal bonus to physical attributes, and that doesn't currently work. So again, I feel like Primal Scream should do more than what it's currently doing. And the confusion effect also doesn't work. So I would love to see an increase in the amount of damage that Primal Scream does. I would also like to see it either affect all attributes, not just the physical ones, or if it is going to stay just on the physical ones, it has a higher bonus to some of the physical attributes. I feel like this is not a very powerful ability as it stands right now. Granted, this is also for my limited solo capability, maybe adding +4 to Strength, Con, and Dex for everyone in the entire raid. That can be maintained 100% uptime versus the old Primal Scream, which, depending on the length of your dungeon and your accessibility of shrines, maybe not. But I would like to see that. Or the only other option is if in the idea that they decide that they're not going to improve the damage on this, improve the range. Make this much wider so it hits a larger amount of people in your raid group, so people can be more spread out and still get the buff, and it hits a lot of different monsters if you want to use this. So if for example, a tank, you want to use it to grab initial aggro on spawning monsters, or if somebody is using it as a buff tool, increase the range dramatically. Make this about triple the range that it is right now, so it's got a huge area of effect. Next we have I'm Always Angry. This is just a perfect ability, and I have no issues with this whatsoever. Unstoppable Strength, which gives you primal tokens +1 hit damage. Again, perfect ability, nothing wrong. And then you have Fast and the Furious. Charge abilities are good, and this one gives +2 crit multiplier. No real problem here. I think this is a good attack in terms of, especially in terms of a charge, and Barbarians don't get one. So again, this is a good attack. I don't love the initial icon, but I do like the way that this works, and it confuses me why there aren't more attacks in more of the Epic Destinies, but still, this is fine. As we move up, however, you're going to notice that there's kind of a bit of a problem. So one of the problems that you currently run into is that you can build all sorts of stuff, but Primal, as of right now, doesn't have a good way to like cash out your Primal charges other than a spell or another spell. There's no big melee hit, which is kind of disappointing. So you're going to go up, and you're going to realize, oh, I have this Great Leveler, which is a cool attack that scales based on my primal charges, but doesn't actually consume them. So you just kind of sit around on them, and especially if you're playing as like a barbarian, like this type of character, you're only going to Primal Scream when you need the buffs. So you're going to have just the unstoppable strength here for the +2 hit and damage. Now, Barbarians are not going to complain about having +4 to hit and damage, or anybody else who's in this scenario, but I really think that there should possibly be another spender, or even make Primal Scream a multi-selector and give somebody something cool to spend their charges on, because we don't have anything cool to spend it on right now. And I don't think there's going to be another Primal Destiny coming out, so that's going to be a bit weird. However, Gird Against Demons is very useful. It currently does not work. Silver and Cold Iron bypass does not happen here, but this is a very good ability. Wild Weapons, being able to choose whether you want extra strike through, offhand attack chance, and double strike is an inspired ability, and I love where it's positioned. So this is very, very good, and I like the fact that this is here. However, now we have these 3 abilities that I find all screwy. Eternal Rage is a cool idea, where it says if you are not raging and are currently out of rage charges, you have a 20% chance to gain a charge of rage whenever you gain or spend a primal charge. I like this idea, but like, you don't really run out of rages. Like, this just doesn't happen. The only time you would actually have this happen is if you like took this I'm always angry ability, and then you didn't like. I'm trying to even think of situations where this is going to happen. But, like, you're always going to have, like, 50 con or whatever, which means your rages last minutes. Anyway, Eternal Rage is bad, is what I'm saying. I hate this. And then you have Force and Fury. Furious, which gives you strength while raging, which is really, really strong, and also increases your adrenaline damage, which is exactly what you want. And then you have Spirit of the Beast, which doesn't even come close to compare. Additionally, Ram's Might and Animal Growth don't affect dexterity. And since this can also be used for dexterity, it really kills you. And this is where you start realizing, oh, this is a strength-only tree. It's not a dex tree. It's not a dex tree. You don't get dex. And that's a problem. So I would say that Spirit of the Beast would need to make it so Ram's Might and Animal Growth also affect dexterity, and there needs to be some type of dex ability in here. Or make Furious give +1 strength and dex while raging. I have no idea, but yeah, this is a problem. Right here you realize, oh, dex does not work in this tree, which is a problem. Yeah, Visage of Terror usage is also a thing. So yeah, so that would be a big deal. Doesn't Primal Scream run off rage charges? No, it does not. This currently uses the primal charges, not rage charges. You spend rages to heal yourself. You could run out, possibly. I just feel like it's not that great of an ability here in this tree. Maybe I am wrong, but I feel like this is not the best ability. But I could be wrong. So yeah, and then Embrace the Pain. I actually don't think Embrace the Pain is bad. I think this is a perfectly fine spot to have here. But the problems that I talked about before, where Force and Fury really don't give you a lot of decision making here, where you should always take Furious. And if you're always taking Furious because Spirit of the Beast is kind of really bad, like if you're playing as a strength-based build, getting the doubling the effects of Ram's Might and Animal Growth, this gives you 12 strength from Ram's Might and Animal Growth, which is a lot of strength. That's literally crazy. But again, it doesn't really work for this situation, because you're like, okay, cool, well, I get all this extra strength, and I get all these extra stats and con, but if you're playing as a dex build, you just feel bad. So, and it's also not really balanced, and also, if you're playing strength, you probably want to use adrenaline, so you wouldn't take that anyway. So these decisions don't feel good. I feel like this should not be like this. This should be related to Cutter. This should be a Cutter buff. Or if they don't want to buff Cutter, they should do something else. And yes, that means you would get -4 dex from Animal Growth. That makes it even worse. So yeah. So I don't love this. As a concept. Now we move up to the tier upwards, tier 4. Tier 4 should be where you have a really good idea as to what you're doing, and this one doesn't really deliver. Unquenchable Rage is a really neat idea, and tacking on a heal effect as well as a damage reduction onto Primal Scream is really cool, and 5 seconds after you scream is actually not too bad, and it's after you consume a Rage Charge or use a Primal Scream. So this is really cool and really Barbarian synergetic, so this one's really neat. But Overwhelming Force. You either get this Primal Force, you get the attack bonus and bonus fortification bypass at rank 3, as well as +2, or sorry, and the bonus to 2 weapon fighting in animal form damage all attacks. Again, you would never take this when you would take Overwhelming Force, because it makes your adrenaline that much better. And that's one of the things I think that's really weird, is that I like that they wanted to make Cutter good, but Cutter can no longer compare, because if you're going this tree, you are taking Fury, or like the, not Fury, but you are taking Adrenaline, you're taking the Adrenaline buff, and you're taking the Adrenaline buff. You just are doing that. There's no reason not to, because it's better than the other options, and you have this really strong Fury attack that you can use on an 8-second cool, or a 6-second cooldown, which is what it should be. So I'm not sure why these abilities are here, and they should probably move them out or put them somewhere else. It needs some type of other support. And then you have Fear My Vengeance, where it makes it so that while you're in the Destiny Mantle, enemies that you strike become feared and you do extra damage. I think this is not really appropriate, if only because it doesn't make sense. Legendary Dreadnought is literally already about fear. I think this should straight up just get cut. I think this is cool, but I don't think it really fits. It might fit, because you're like, oh, Fury and whatever, but I feel like this could be made something more interesting. Like, this should be turned into something else. What exactly, I'm not sure, but having a fear effect in here, it's just like you're double dipping on the fear from Dreadnought and Fury of the Wild, and they're both melee. Like, I feel like you move that onto something else. Sense Weakness is perfectly fine here. I think this is a great ability. It's a classic effect. And then Top Dog gives you an improved trip. Again, I don't like this. I don't think improved trip should go here. This is where I would put an attack. I would just make a new attack and have trip on it. So basically, I would say take this ability out. Spirit of the Beast, take this out and replace something. So somebody in chat had a great idea, Eternal Rage. Take Eternal Rage, shove it into this core under Die Hardest. Take this Spirit of the Beast out, put this over here, and put a cutter bonus here. Take the Primal Force out, put a cutter bonus here. Delete Fear My Vengeance, and put this Primal Force right here, and then put in a unique attack with a trip. I feel like that would be more appropriate for what's going on here in the tree. And now, we go to the top, the tier 5. The Great Leveler. Fantastic attack, really fun to use. Highly recommend. This is a great ability, and it's on a 20-second cooldown. I love the Great Leveler. It's very fun. Nature's Fury. I think there's nothing wrong with this decision to put this here. The two-handed fighting, two-weapon fighting, I think it's all good. And I think that is a good decision here to go with. Wade Through, again, really powerful effects. No issues for me here. I think this is another good option here at the top tier. Scarred by Chaos. Some people don't like this, but it's 100 life and 20 physical resistance rating if you have Harbinger of Chaos. That's a really big draw to take this, considering you can also get Lore of the Wilds for the primal bonus to Wilderness or to max HP. I think the main issue here is that it's too expensive. This should cost 1, and this should cost 1. If these cost 1, this one, and this one, that means you can take the whole thing for 9 points, which seems appropriate. Or even not even take the whole thing for 9 points. If you just want to move some of the cost here, I think that would be appropriate. So make one of these, like Scarred by Chaos should cost 1. If you want to leave this at 2, that's fine, but do that. So yes, every time you use Visage, it's a heal, correct. So I feel like that would be a better thing. You should definitely make it so that this, like, no more than 10 points. Okay? No more than 10 points. So that's what I'd like to see. But yeah, so there should be an upgrade path for both. I just don't know why there would be an upgrade path for only one. Okay, so now we're going to tackle the two destinies that are problematic. I'm going to talk about why they're problematic, because they're both in the same place, and Fatesinger is going to encounter the same problem. So, Shadowdancer and Shiradi Champion are the two problematic destinies. I think that a lot of the other destinies came out with really strong designs and just need some numbers tweaks, a couple more good ideas, and a couple things to go into them. But Shadowdancer and Shiradi are problematic because they have an idea that's a fun and good idea, and they can't execute on it. And so I think that this is where we need to kind of discuss how Shadowdancer and Shiradi Champion can actually become usable. The main issue that both of these trees run into is that they're hybrids, okay? Now, hybridization of trees is not necessarily a bad thing, because being able to support more than one playstyle is very cool. The problem is, the hybridization is not really incentivized, but it's actually separate. In fact, it's so separate that you cannot get to tier 5 of either of these trees using only one half of the hybridization. If you're a melee, you cannot get up to this tier 5 by spending points in only the melee stuff. You have to take some of the spell stuff. If you are playing Shiradi and you're only ranged, you cannot get up to the tier 5 taking only the ranged stuff. Similarly, if you're a spellcaster, you also cannot get up to the tier 5 taking only the spellcaster stuff. These trees effectively need to be riddled with multi-selectors that they just don't currently have. And that's what they need. And that honestly solves pretty much all the problems. Either multi-selectors or condensing of abilities. So what do I mean by that? Take a look at Shadowdancer first, as I think that it's a better example for where things can be condensed so you can make more space. So, Shadowdancer. The cores, all the cores are good. There's nothing wrong with these cores. They're perfect, they're beautiful, they're really straightforward, and they're nice to use. Tier 1. Reflex saves and hide moves silently. Perfect. Threat. That's great. The token builders. There's 3 different types of builders. That's perfect. Assassinate DCs. Well, you can't use this as a spellcaster, but it's all right. And Technician. It was here before, so let's add it in. So let's hypothetically say that you're playing as a melee or a ranged. You're taking your builder, and then you're taking either Assassinate DCs, or you're taking Cover of Darkness, or you're taking Stealthy. Either way, these things fit in pretty nicely and get you up to the tier 2. What's in the tier 2? Well, first, we have Lithe, which is designed for light armor, gives you some spell power, armor class, and reflex saving throws. I think this is actually not too bad of an ability, and I like the way it's set up here, so it works out really well as a tier 2. But we have Long Shadows, where each martial charge grants you +1 sneak attack dice and no longer automatically fails a reflex saving throw on a 1. Martial charge should grant you sneak attack dice and also spell power. I mean, there's no reason it should only support one. It should support both. If you are only a martial, like if you're only a weapon user, you don't need the spell power, so it won't have an impact on your character. It's not going to make you overpowered for having those extra stats. If you're only a spellcaster, you're not going to be overpowered for having the sneak attack because you can't use it. And, like, you want to take this no matter what. So this should 100% apply sneak attack dice and spell power. What kind of spell power? Well, they say force and universal, so force and universal should also apply per martial charge. Again, another thing, sleight of hand. Offhand strike chance. Cool. But what if you don't use that? Well, now that's a problem. Shadow form. Shadow form's kind of cool, but I don't understand why this is a 3-point Destiny Mantle. Destiny Mantles, as far as I can tell, 1 point here. Destiny Mantles are 1 point all over the place. Where's this Shiradi Mantle? Shiradi Mantle's 1 point. Shadow form should be 1 point. You can make it cost 2, but it should be a 1 point investment. It should not be more than that. Primal has 3 points as well. Oh, that's stupid. The mantle should be 1 point as the beginning investment. It shouldn't be 3 points. I think Primal and Fury also do that. They should not do that. That is a silly thing, and they should not do that. Just make it so you click the mantles. The mantles should be things that you tier up and upgrade. It should be just you get the mantle. Just give me the tier 3 effect. Just do that. Next, we have Meld into Darkness as your spender. This is a problem because your spender is something that is valuable. Meld into Darkness is very good. But Meld into Darkness, being the only spender, means that, well, how do you get martial charges? You can't get martial charges with Nightmare Lance, which means this needs to be a multi-selector. They should make it so that this should be Meld into Darkness, multi-selector, martial spender, or arcane spender, maybe, or have a different attack. But there should be a arcane, maybe not an arcane version of this, but there should be an arcane spender in this tree. It's an arcane tree. So already some problematic things. If you're an arcane caster, you can't take this. You don't really need Shadow Form because the mantle is actually only melee focused. You don't need Sleight of Hand, and Long Shadows doesn't affect you, except for this 1 point here. So you're maybe taking Lithe, and you're maybe taking Long Shadows, and you're not taking this stuff. So we already have a problem, an immediate critical issue with our spellcaster version of this Destiny. But it gets worse. So as I said, some of the ways you can easily fix this, as I said, make this cost 2 and make it the single selector. Put the arcane stuff in here, and then put an extra spender that scales off of arcane tokens. I think that would be a great idea to help fix some of this problem. But now we move up. Whispers. This should get replaced. This doesn't really do anything. So this could be any cool ability. You can make this a spell-like ability. You can make this an extra attack. You can do something. Whispers, bad. The spell focus, I actually don't think there's anything wrong with having the spell focus here. I think that is a perfectly good way to have a differentiation here in the tree, so that's perfectly good. Grim Precision is, again, one thing you take one and not the other. But now we have a problem. Crippled with Shadows, Crippling Strike is bad. But if you already have Crippling Strike, it becomes good and gives you Martial Charge Cap. So you kind of always want to take this. Depths of Darkness is very situational and not always useful for the spell pen. But as I said, you're spending points here, 3 points here, 1 point here. If you're a spellcaster, you don't take Grim Precision, you're taking Shadowdancer Spell Focus, and you're probably not taking Whispers. Excuse me. So, so you're really not spending enough points to get up to the next tier. Again, do you see my problem? So I think that what you should have is possibly Grim Precision, and this should be one ability. Literally call this Grim Precision, because they have the same damn icon, but call it Grim Precision, and this should give, like, make it a 3-pointer, but make it Grim Precision and the other one. So you have, each point is 5% fort bypass, 1% dodge bypass, and +1 to your DCs. Again, these are trees. This tree is meant to be a hybrid. So literally just make it a hybrid. Now you could make the argument, well, isn't that going to be strictly better than something else? No, it's not. Because if you're not playing somebody who is actually meleeing, you don't care about those extra stats. And it allows you to save points and actually put more fun stuff in here. Like, if you need Grim Precision and you want the spell focus, your character build is already at a disadvantage because you're playing as a hybrid. So you need something to help you out and fix some of these problems. So what they should do is literally take these things and combine them into one. 1,000,000,000%. They should combine these things into one. That gives you an extra spot here to put in something fun that works for both character classes. Because now you can guarantee people are pretty much going to be taking Grim Precision in some capacity. It also gets people to think about it and maybe want to consider using some of the other effects in some of the trees. Maybe you do want to take an Illusion effect out of Shiradi Champion because you're sitting here going, well, I already took Illusion out of Shadowdancer. There's a lot of good ideas. So I like that. So let's do that. And let's add a new ability here that does something exciting. I think Crippled with Shadows, Depths of Darkness is fine, and Whispers needs to be replaced. So we should make a change here. Now let's move up to the Tier 4. And Tier 4 is where it gets really screwy. Pierce the Gloom is not too bad, but it doesn't work for spellcasters. Dark Armor is not too bad, but it's also not too good. It's kind of boring. It's a low amount of stats. I would like this to go, this should be 3, 6, 10, I think, for physical magical resistance rating. I don't think that's for 3 points. That seems really good, but it's honestly, like, that's not that crazy. Dark Mercy for the helplessness damage is fine. The Lingering in the Dark Tumble is, again, only good for melees. And the drop is interesting, but it gives you arcane charges that you can't spend. So I actually think the drop is fine. So if I was to adjust this and make this a little bit more cohesive and exciting, I would say if they wanted Whispers to be here, they should add in a cool spell-like ability. So take Whispers and throw into Shadowdancer, I can't believe I'm saying this, like a Phantasmal Killer spell-like ability literally right here, as well as a multi-selector with something cool from like a cool rogue-like attack. That's something that does extra sneak attack or something. Maybe not Executioner Strike. I know a lot of people like Executioner Strike, but I think even still having it up here is not too bad of an idea, considering it would be just like however you want to scale it. And then, as I said, make Dark Armor a little bit better. And Linger in the Dark should probably grant an Arcane charge and a Martial charge. Or maybe make it so it adds... actually, you know what? Even granting a martial charge is fine. You can make this a multi-selector for Linger in the Dark to incentivize people to actually stealth while in Shadowdancer, even as a caster, by making it so there's two versions. One that does this, and an arcane version that grants you, bonus spell power and other stuff when you tumble. So have that split. That seems fine. You think melee builds will have a hard time on High Reaper when they don't have Meld and Dire Charge? It means that your melee players will have to look at the screen, and what they will need to do is say, oh, there's a monster. I shouldn't stand in front of it. I should move around it. Or they will say, oh, I should crowd control that monster. I should think about my actions. Or they should say, ooh, I'll let the tank go into the room first, and then I will stand behind the monsters and not get killed. That is what is going to change. We played for a long time before we played in these difficulty settings without needing to use Dire Charge and Meld into Darkness on every build. So you will still be able to do that. I won't worry about it. Also, you still will be able to get access to those abilities. In fact, you could still play the Meld Dire Charge. Anyway, to finish off here, the Tier 5 is something where I think that the condensing of this needs to be even bigger. Weird, Just a Taste, Shadow Mastery, Greater Spell Focus, and Greater Shadow Form. All right. Shadow Mastery. I can't believe I'm going to say this. Combine these things. You don't need both of them. Take this and this, marry them together. For 3 points, you get +3 dodge, +3 assassinate DCs, +3 spell DCs, +6 reflex saving throws, 1 dodge cap. Now you've opened up a space right here. Weird. Cool. Multi-select this with a melee or something, or a ranged attack, or take Weird, Just a Taste, put them together. Also, Just a Taste can't just be finessable melee weapons. It should just be melee weapons, and the reason I say this is because quarterstaffs. If you are a rogue who plays a Thief Acrobat, you can't use Shadowdancer, or you don't want to use Shadowdancer. And Thief Acrobats are the dancers, and get the tumbling effects, which synergizes right here. Imagine you play a quarterstaff character, and you can't use Shadowdancer, because some of the abilities don't work. That's a feel sad man moment, so they should change that. So this should be not finessable melee weapons, just melee weapons. Now, you might say, well, isn't that all weapons? Yes, it should just be +1 crit multi on a 19 or 20. I actually think that they should all just be +1 crit multi on a 19 or 20, but yeah. Or make Quarterstaff finessable, but yes. So yeah, that should be an easy change. And then, as I said, you have 2 spaces. If you combine Weird into this, so Just a Taste adds Weird to your spellbook and also grants Just a Taste, and you have 2 spots now to put in cool stuff. And if you have 2 spots to put in cool stuff, another spot to put in another cool thing down here, and you make another multi-selector here, and you also get a spell-like ability or attack in here, I think Shadowdancer could be very, very, very good. And again, you might say that, but isn't that overpowered? You're now saying that this hybrid character has +3 to DCs for all their spells and assassinate DCs and dodge and 1 ability? That seems really broken. No, because no character class in the entire game is using assassinate and spell DCs on 1 character build currently. That might change in the future, but right now they can't do that because there isn't enough stats to go around. You just can't build hybrids that way. So why don't we just build hybrids that way? It's never going to, like, this won't do more damage than the other things. It doesn't give you more options. Let's do that. Falconry Caster did? Oh, yeah, but Tom was the only person who played that build ever in the existence of Falconry. So, like, it could be good, but it's not something people prioritize. People prioritize damage. Oh, sorry, 2 players. Right, sorry, my bad. 2 players out of, like, the 70,000 monthly logins. my bad. Yes, I think that, but also, I don't think there's anything wrong with supporting that. I think there's nothing wrong with supporting that. I think that'd be a perfectly fine solution. So that's Shadowdancer. So now you heard me rant about Shadowdancer. Now I think that they should combine a lot of things and add them in. Because again, you might see that as overpowered. You might be like, wait, so you're going to say 1 point is going to give you fortification bypass and dodge bypass and DCs? Yeah, because no one's using both of those stats at the same time. So yes, combine into 1. That's how you hybrid. You don't hybrid by saying you can choose one or the other. You're just killing all your real estate. Just shove it into 1. No one's using both of them. So if you want to play a melee who has spell DCs, you're now in Shadowdancer because you're probably not going to use Dreadnaught or another tree as your main one. Or you can still use Dreadnaught as your main tree, but you go into Shadowdancer to pick up some of the other hybridized stats that might work for your character. It means that the trees actually have both a purpose, they in and of themselves have enough abilities to support themselves, and they're quite interesting because they allow you to create all sorts of crazy new ideas. Okay? So, Shiradi. Now, as many people have said and come into chat and said, Shiradi is a caster epic destiny. I would like to posit that it is not it doesn't do anything really. And that's one of the main issues with Shiradi right now. It's too spread out and it's too all over the place. But it's not that far from being good. Okay? It just, you run into problems where you don't want to take anything. As I mentioned before, if you are a bow character, you don't want to take Fey form. You don't want to take Enemy of My Own because there's almost no Fey in the game. You don't want to take Whirling Risks, and you maybe might take Step into the Wilds for 1 point, and then Track for 2 points. So if you're a bow character or an Inquisitive, any type of crossbow user, you are in a bad place in this tier 4. So we're going to start from the beginning and see what we can do to juice up some of these abilities and make things a little bit more exciting and enticing for those who want to use this. All right. So, the cores, Fey Favor, Piercing Twilight, and Audience of the Queen. These are all great. I have no issues with these. Audience of the Queen being a thematic ability, being in here. I think these are great. Cores, delightful. Don't want to change it. Prism, if they want to go the Prism route, I think that Prism being the main ability, I think is mostly fine. The problem with Prism is that it just doesn't scale properly anymore. So, this 1d100 extra damage with a random type doesn't scale very well. So you don't really need this anymore. I would say make it 2d100s, like literally just double the damage on it. Or make it like a d50 per character level. So it gets like, per epic level or something like that. So it goes up to like 50 d50s or something like that. Or not 50, 10 d50s. That might sound like a lot of damage, but it only procs 7% of the time, and it's really not that good. Anyways. Wild Magics for mana. 1, rank 3 grants not enough spell power, and also it's kind of weird for the extra spell points. Good Luck is very, very good, and I really like this ability here. Fey Sight gives you Search, Spot, and Listen, and immunity to blindness, which is again okay. And then Shiradi Growth, which is an attack. Now, the attack here is Pin and Fey Lights. Pin needs to be made more exciting. This ability is very boring and it got gutted. The original pin didn't have any problems with it. This should be rolled back to the regular pin. It was not an overpowered ability, and having it as a spender is interesting. Now, if they want to reduce the crowd control duration, because it's on a 6-second cooldown, I'm actually okay with that. So if they want to make the crowd control 6 seconds with a 6-second duration, I think that's fine, but it should not be the first target hit. It should hit everything. That's the point of Improved Precise Shot. If they don't like the fact that Improved Precise Shot exists, Saying So Games should remove Improved Precise Shot. They should not make it so that Improved Precise Shot has low value with crowd control attacks. So I would not like to see that done in that way. It should hit all targets, and it should also have a full crowd control duration, please. Fey Lights is a very useful ability, and I have no issues with this ability. It's perfect. Good job. The main issue I have with Fey Lights is I don't see a reason to put more points into this one. So I would like to see something along the lines of you can generate more than one primal charge if you hit more than one target. I think that would be an interesting way to do that for Fey Lights to make it a little bit more exciting and interactive. Now, let's move up to the Tier 2. I think that with those changes, this can be a very competent Tier 1. Pin, again, can be a better attack. And one thing I've talked about here is that like some of these abilities do get better. Pin, granting critical threat range and multiplier, not being a bad ability. When it's rank 3, it gets +2 threat and multiplier. Again, it's a good ability. I think that it just needs the extra crowd control duration on this one. But moving up to the next tier, I'm just going to take Pin here and this. We now have Rainbow. Again, Rainbow, like I said, damage could be majorly improved. But we have Empathic Link for charges of Wild Empathy. Wild Empathy is useless on its own. So I really don't like this being here. And Phase Double gives stats you actually want. I would take Empathic Link and put this into Phase Double. Just take that and put this in here. So this gives you 2% double shot, one primal or one of these Wild Empathy charges, and also 1% stacking incorporeality. Why? Because nobody wants Empathic Link, ever, and shoving it in here is good. So do that. Healing Spring is bad. This should give Greater Vigor Mass at the very least. I think that even Greater Vigor Mass is not good enough with this ability, but it should be Greater Vigor Mass. Additionally, this should not have a cooldown of 30 seconds, which means you can't actually stack it. This should have no cooldown, or a cooldown of maybe 2 seconds. This should have 0 cooldown, 100%. I would love to see Regenerate here, but because it has a ridiculous cost of Wild Empathy charges that you can't get back. But at the very least, Greater Vigor, and it should have basically no cooldown. There's no way that this has this high of a cooldown. Longsword, good for defensive paladin. Getting a bonus from a deity. Also, do you have to start with 14 wisdom? You do not have to start with 14 wisdom, because you can get wisdom items to cast all your spells. So if you can get a wisdom item to cast your spells, and you can get buffs to cast your spells and stuff, and Longsword's a great paladin weapon. And then we actually go into the attacks. So you have Otto's Whistler as an attack here, and Otto's Whistler has the 18-second dance. Again, the spenders should not have a long cooldown. They should have a 5-second cooldown, so this should be adjusted. But getting targets forced to dance, I think this whole thing needs to be rearranged. The fact that it scales, it does less damage than Pin is really dumb, so this should have extra threat range and multiplier on the actual attack. The dance being 18 seconds, make it like a 6-second dance to line up with Pin, or even if you want to make it 10 seconds, but reduce the cooldown on this. Or make the dance duration scale with the amount of charges you have, so it's 6 seconds with 1 charge, 12 seconds with 2 charges, and 18 seconds with 3 or more charges. Something like that would be a great way to work on the spender, but this ability needs a lot of work. And then Beguile just straight up sucks. Straight up sucks. This needs to be an attack. This should be a spender. You can call it like a Fey Bolt or something. This should be an attack. Make it a Lightning Bolt style attack that does a bunch of damage. Do anything. But Beguile is garbage and should never be used. This is a horrible ability. This should be a spell attack, please. Primal spell attack, force damage, make it do something cool, please. Beguile bad. And then with this empty space here, you can put anything you want in here, ideally something that has a benefit to both things. You could make it so that you get, based on the number of primal tokens you have, you get a bonus ability, which I don't think is in the tree at all. So maybe you can make it based on the number of primal tokens, you gain an extra stat or something. That would be cool. Now we go up to the tier 3, and the tier 3 is where we start to get real bad. Double Rainbow has a bunch of effects that are random. These effects are old, and if they're not being changed, that means they're going to be very bad. So this needs to be like highly increased in chance or something, because these effects, not good. Bad. These are all the old effects. They have been scaled since level 20, which means no one's taking double rainbow. So if you're not taking double rainbow, where are you spending your points? Pierce Deception, maybe. This lets you auto search stuff. This should include a change to the Watchful Eye to explain how to actually see what stats you physically need for this. But also, 5 double shot is nice. This should also add, maybe instead of just 5 double shot and spell power, because why not? Again, 5 double shot and the spell power that goes along with it. 10 force and 10 universal. Just do that. Throw that in here. So let's make that actually work. Shiradi Magic. That's kind of cool. I like Shiradi Magic. Because it gives DCs. But, like, this should also give something to ranged characters. So let's make something in here in ranged. I don't know what ranged characters even use. But we should combine these things. So, like, the Elemental Absorption here is also too expensive. This should be a 2-pointer with 10% Elemental Absorption and 1 Primal Charge Cap. This is too expensive. Vision seems cool. So this seems fine. Ghost Touch and Bypass, Dodge, and Fortification. But again, if you're playing as a spellcaster, you take Shiradi Magic, you take this, you don't take Pierce Deception, and you take Double Rainbow. So you're only spending 8 points on tier 3. So this is, again, another problem. So yeah, making the Pierce Deception upgrade is good. Buffing Double Rainbow somehow, or changing this out entirely, is probably a good idea. Shiradi Magic should have a physical component, so you are incentivized to want to take it. Maybe you put in Shiradi Magic that it gives you +1 to damage and 2% double shot with ranged attacks. So if you have all 3 points, so let's just say you take 3 points in Conjuration, that gives you +3 damage and +6 double shot, as well as the 3 Conjuration DCs, so something that people maybe want to spend some point in. Yeah, and then Vision, I feel like Holy Strike doesn't really fit here as well, but there's also not a lot of other options, because a lot of the things are kind of bad. You could make this Wind Through the Trees if you wanted, or another ability where it's Wind Through the Trees. It gives you double the dodge and fort bypass, which would make more sense than Holy Strike, if I'm being honest, because Holy Strike already gives you Ghost Touch. So that would be kind of cool. And add something spellcastery to Vision. Just add more spell power to Vision, or spell cost reduction. So you have 5% additional spell cost reduction or something like that, so that you actually want to possibly use this as a spellcaster. Tier 4 is just... Oh, God. Oh, God. Fate Form. Fate Form is bad and needs to be made better. This should not be DR 10 cold and iron. If they want to keep the DR, maybe make it a percentage base, like 5% less damage taken from slashing or bludgeoning or something like that. That would be better. And the Force Universal Spell Power for 2 points. I'm never spending this on 2 points. This is less than some heroic abilities give you for 1 point. This is ridiculous. This should be like at least 10 and 10. Come on. Track doesn't do anything with spells. Let Track apply to spells. And also let it dump spell resistance. Dealing damage to enemies with ranged attacks or spells reduces their armor class by 1, their fortification by 2, and their spell resistance by 1. Stacks 10 times. Enemy of My Own is just bad. It's thematic, but it needs to do something else. Maybe it gives you defenses versus Fae. Maybe this adds Slippery Mind. This should probably just straight up add Slippery Mind, if I'm being honest. So you get like double will saves, but this ability is just bad. Whirling Wrist only affects thrown weapons, which is insane that this is here. This existed in original Shiradi, which gave double strike and the attack speed with thrown weapons, so you at least were incentivized to take this if you didn't have the thrown weapons. But it's not here. So, yes. Make it attack speed with thrown weapons, and also double shot, and also something spellcastery in here. Just add something spellcastery. I don't know what else you could even add to this one. I don't know. Spell cost reduction. You can't add DCs. You can't add casting speed. Reduce cost of Quicken, I have no idea, but something needs to go in here, because Whirling Wrists on its own is bad, and it takes up too much real estate. Because let's just, again, imagine that I'm playing as a bow character. I don't want to take Enemy of My Own, because Enemy of My Own is bad. I don't want to take Fey Form, because Fey Form is bad. I don't want to take Whirling Wrist, because Whirling Wrist is bad, which means I'm spending 1 point here and 2 points here. I can't get to tier 5 as a bow character. Madness. Hunt's End. Cool. Doesn't affect spells. That's a problem. Hunt's End should be a multi-selector with another cool spell. Feywild Attunement is dodge. You always consider to be in point-blank range, and universal and force spell power. Perfect. I have no issues with Feywild Attunement. Control, plus to all spell DCs, and Lore of the Hunt in critical multiplier and a roll of 19 or 20 with ranged weapons. Control should also add something to ranged attackers. I don't know what, but it should add something to ranged attackers. And then Nerve Venom is perfectly fine. I think that if you can make it so Control also adds maybe hit damage, or you get a stack of a buff when you hit monsters with ranged attacks, I think that'd be perfectly fine. I have no issues with this. As well, I think that Hunt's End and the other spell that's in here that they add in that's comparable to Hunt's End, so you call it like, you know, Fey Constriction or whatever they want, they should make it so that both of those abilities scale with how many primal tokens you have. I'll probably put suggestions in, but that's probably how they should do it. And then now, if with the change tree that I just suggested, you have avenues where no matter what, if you're playing a ranged or a spellcaster, to actually take this whole thing and go up to the tier 5, you don't feel as bad about taking the stuff, and you have way more damage and stats that you actually need. It fits your character. That's what I would like to see. Yeah, Force Missiles, why not? I would love a Force Missile spell-like ability somewhere in here. We should 100%. Yeah, replace this. Replace Beguile with, like, an upgraded Force Missile SLA. Straight up. It's just straight up upgraded Force Missile SLA. Where it goes up to, like, 6 missiles. It's just Force Missiles, but you get 6 missiles. So you can maximize and power and do everything to it. And just slam people with it. That'd be sick. So, overall, that is my feeling about all of the Epic Destinies that we have been shown so far. I personally think, and I mentioned this before, I think that a lot of them are really, really solid. I think that Shadowdancer and Shiradi are the ones that are kind of missing some of their oomph. You know, they're just missing some of the things that make hybrids good, which is instead of combining abilities so that hybrids can use them, they divided the trees right down the middle and said ranged, or like, you know, sneak, melee, and spellcaster. And I think that's the worst way to do a hybrid. That is not hybrid. That is literally the opposite of a hybrid. That is separation. So it should be hybridized, and I just think that would be very cool.